and all of our senior staff and any members of the public that may be joining us. Just to remind members of the elected officials of your obligation to declare a pecuniary interest or an interest. Seeing nothing, if anything should arise, you may declare it at that time. So first on the agenda is our long-term care CM 14-22, the 2023 to 2032 long-term care 10-year capital forecast. And we have a resolution that report LTCR CM 1422 regarding long-term care 2023 to 2032 draft 10-year capital forecast be received, and that it be forwarded for inclusion in the 2023 to 2032 corporate 10-year capital forecast for consideration by County Council, and that the projects proposed in the first year of the 2023 to 2032 forecast be used for planning purposes for the 2023 budget. Can I have a mover to get that on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Burley and seconded by Councillor Woodbury. So there's lots of pieces to this, Jennifer. Are we going to go through our executive directors first, or how, or Marcus, or how do you want to do this?
Yes, Councillor Mackey will pass it over to Marcus, and he's going to kick off the report.
Okay, welcome Marcus, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, committee. I will be reading through the report and going over the high notes with it. The executive directors are here to answer any sort of questions you may have with specific projects or specific to their homes, but we can get started. So this report provides the anticipated capital expenditures for County of Grey's long-term care homes for the 10-year period of 2023 to 2032. It was based on the 2021 building condition assessment and reserve fund recommendations. And we're using that as our starting point as we determine what projects, both additional and changes regarding the timing of the work. Costing of these projects have been included from the BCAs at their market value and what we anticipate, and we are assuming a 2% inflation increase on proposed BCAs for the projects going into the future years. Reductions were made on a one-time basis during the 2022 budget process in order to reduce the impact of operating budget pressures. So the table below that you have in the executive summary shows the proposed capital levy requirements for Grey Gables, Lee Manor, both of them increasing and being in line with previous capital expenditures. And given that the redevelopment of Rockwood Terrace capital requirements are held at a reduced amount. The long-term care proposed capital levy is summarized as below. So you can see that there was an increase with Grey Gables and Lee Manor as we resume capital expenditures, and that Rockwood and the redevelopment continue, which will be more discussion in their specific parts. As a result of this, the proposed 2023 capital requirements reflect an increase of $166,200, or an 8.9% increase over the 2022 approved capital budget. So there's several with the 10-year capitals that you see with each of them are the attachments. There's several reoccurring projects which are ongoing and continue to be on there, which are the high-low beds, resident lifts, and information technology. Those are replaced based on their useful life and maintaining the support for residents and staff safety. They have their prescribed by manufacturers as well as IT following along for their useful lives that way. Annual reserve contributions are recommended through the 2021 building condition assessment to ensure adequate funds are available for the replacement of building and equipment components in the future. An analysis of the home's capital reserves has been completed, and a project sheet is included on the package for each home that outlines a plan for future transfers to reserves. So what we plan to contribute from the reserves for completion of projects, also from levy. With the preparation of the 2023 to 2032 10-year capital forecast, staff have reviewed projects recommended in the BCA reports as compared with their observations that have been made. Capital project sheets have been updated from last year, these with major changes, including the addition of impact on the operating budget, procurement timing, consultation with IT, and climate change considerations. Staff have identified opportunities for climate change where possible, but the costing of these projects are unknown at this time and are not included in this 10-year capital plan. Other considerations for the development of the proposed capital sheets include safety, legislation, and normal life cycle replacement. So those are all the areas that you'll see on those project sheets if you go through them individually. Starting it off with Grey Gables. Grey Gables was constructed in 1998. It is now 24 years old. During the 2022 budget preparation, the capital levy was reduced by $99,500 to $193,800 to assist with operational budget pressures. The capital forecast reflects a proposed levy requirement of $305,200, recommending a return to the previous funding levels prior to the 2022 budget. So it's an increase of $111,400. or a 57.5% increase over the 2022 approved budget. You'll notice that there is quite a list of projects in with Grey Gables. These are adding things back to the building condition, adding back into the 10-year plan to keep the building operating and everything and maintaining at its peak rather than before when we were considering it for redevelopment. Lee Manor was constructed in 1973 and had a major renovation and addition in 2004 to 2006. The proposed levy requirement for Lee Manor of $214,500 is an increase of $54,800 or 34.3% as compared to the 2022 approved capital budget of $159,700. Similar to Grey Gables, the 2022 to 2031 10-year capital forecast presented a proposed 2023 levy requirement of $232,600, and reductions were made in the 2022 budget process. The chart below, you'll see another list of projects. A lot of those have been ones that were added from the new BCA, so suggesting new updates and assessments done across the home. Moving on to Rockwood Terrace, the proposed levy requirement of $145,600 maintains the funding in the 2022 approved budget in comparison to the 2021 capital levy of $307,700. The levy was reduced when the 2022 budget was finalized and is considered sufficient for the current site. The main one with this one is that this needs to provide a safe, comfortable environment while balancing the cost to maintain the building. Funds are provided for windows, floorings, plumbing fixtures, electrical, in the event that a replacement is required. However, we're maintaining it to say that we're doing what needs to do for safety and comfort, but not going anything above and beyond that we wouldn't be able to take with us, or that it would be past it. It would still have plenty of useful life when we're planning to when we're in the redevelopment process. Moving on to the redevelopment, the proposed capital forecast includes the $1,361,000 transfer to reserve for the redevelopment of Rockwood Terrace. This amount is unchanged from prior forecasts and represents the funds that become available when the debenture payment for the renovation of Lee Manor was completed. Reserve funds are expected to be fully used in 2023 to cover the estimated costs and cash flow provided by Colliers. A construction loan will be required in the beginning of 2024, with the debenture issued when the project is complete mid-2026. Colliers project leaders presented a costing for redevelopment options to the Long-Term Care Committee at March 3rd, 2022 meeting. At the March 17th meeting, the committee discussed report CAORRP 02-22 and directed staff to move forward with option 2, being the development of long-term care assisted living facility in the Village Square. As of right now, we are still operating on the Class D estimates, which put the project cost at $108,498,050, and that the cost estimate based on Colliers has a fluctuation between 20 to 30%. Class C estimates are expected to arrive to us in December, which will have an estimated accuracy of 15 to 20%. So we'll have a better picture of what happens come December. With the financial and resource implications, the capital reserves for long-term care homes are maintained at individual entities. However, we consider them as a full portfolio when we're reviewing it as a whole, making sure that if one has additional funds where one might be short, we're able to make sure that at least all 3 homes are well funded in a collective. Rockwood, for that instance, has sufficient reserve funds, which is beneficial to offset the cost of unbudgeted capital expenditures in future years if required. Lee Manor and Grey Gables have some larger projects anticipated in the upcoming years, which impact the individual homes' reserves. However, reserves will be redistributed as required for the 3 homes, as we were just mentioning. The building condition assessment and reserve funds was used to identify priorities. Staff then compared that with their own assessment to determine whether the timing of a project should be adjusted based on plans, based on the actual determination from our team. The proposed capital levy for Grey Gables and Lee Manor is in line with previous capital forecasts, with the requirement of Rockwood Terrace remaining at the 2023 approved budget amount. Reductions were made on a one-time basis again for the 2022 budget process in order to reduce the impact. As a result, we are looking at the 2023 capital requirement totals $2,026,200 as an increase of $166,200 or an 8.9% increase over the previous year's approved capital project. And that is the report, and I'm happy to take any questions or to redirect any AEDs.
Thanks very much for the report, Marcus. Questions from members of the committee? Brian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, I guess there's only one sentence in here I have a bit of a problem with. Staff have identified opportunities for climate change where possible, but the costing of these projects are unknown at this time and are not included in the 10-year forecast. I'm just kind of wondering what the strategy is behind $0 going into this when you know that there's going to be costs.
For sure. So, oh, I saw Kim had her hand up.
I guess, okay, I'll say some things and then and I'm sure others will also contribute. I think one of the things that we're challenged by right now is some of the, like either the materials or the vehicles or the things that we'd be looking to use or put in place aren't available right now. So we don't have numbers to be able to specifically apply to those opportunities. So what we've done is included the costs as we understand them for these capital projects using the conventional means, if I can say it like that, right? So we've costed these projects the way we would always cost them. We recognize that for some of them, there will be an opportunity as new products and things come online to switch over to use more climate friendly options. But until we have more information, I think it's really hard for us to estimate whether those new things will cost significantly more or the same or less than what we'd be doing anyway. So I think it's fair to say that there's money has been put into the budget to account for capital requirements, but where we would need to make different decisions based on climate adaptation or GHG mitigation. If we didn't have a specific product that we could reach out and touch as a substitute right now, we didn't try to make it up.
I guess if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
I guess the way I'm thinking is, we have reserves for almost everything. And, I'm not pushing one way or the other. So I'm just wondering what the strategy was. If we know that there's going to be costs down the road, maybe we should have a reserve and, like we do everything else. But if that's the route we're taking, then so be it. I just wanted an explanation. That's all. Thank you.
Other questions from members of the committee?
Mary Lou's there if you want.
Hi, Mary Lou.
Hello, Mr. Chair. I was just going to add in addition to Kim's comments back to Councillor O'Leary. For Lee Manor, for example, we do have $4,000 in 2024 for a lighting audit. And that would tell us the recommendations where we could find energy saving opportunities. And we also have, prior to doing the air makeup system, we have a consultant in 2025 to look at that as well. So that'll help us with recommended products with the tender. And they should be able to give us some ideas on, what the best opportunities are at that time. And hopefully they can also identify any grant opportunities as well. And we've used grants for lighting through property. And we had some for, I believe, economic development. So those are all good things. With respect to the Rockwood Terrace redevelopment, Andrew from Colliers has mentioned things like you look at the HVAC, you can look at triple pane windows. So when the time comes that you're replacing those items, that's when you're looking at, I guess, when they're at the end of their life cycle versus I'm not going to just replace my windows at home because I could save energy if they were only 5 years old type thing. So I think those are the strategies that we can use. And then with Linda Swanston, making some recommendations, and then we can find what is best out there. Because that's certainly not something that currently staff has an expertise in. I hope that helps.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Mary Lou. And energy conservation is certainly an area that we should all be looking at. And I'm glad that there's some focus on energy conservation. I think I saw Councillor Burley's hand. Go ahead, Dwight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I congratulate staff on trying to deal with the situation that it's, instead of going with a guesstimate, I think it's a very good strategy you got going forward. My personal views is that the climate actions on 10-year plan, it still won't catch up to it. There's too many things that need to happen. The technology is not there yet. And I really don't think we're going to see it for quite a long time. We keep talking about 2030 and so on, but man, there's going to be a lot of changes to happen before now and then. But just a comment.
No, I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of things that need to take place before, if you're talking about electric vehicles, there's a lot of things have to take place before, those mandates can be put in. And can we afford all these things? That's going to be the big question for future councils. I think we all want to, protect our climate, but what can we afford to do? I had one question, Marcus, in regards to the 2% inflationary costs that you're using going forward. Do staff, based on where things are at today, is there a confidence that that number is going to be high enough for inflation?
Yeah, so the biggest one with it and how we've looked at it is that the initial few years from 2023 to 2025 are our immediate ones that we're reviewing and making sure are accurate and saying, okay, those ones we know there'll be impacts. We are assuming like others do too, that the Bank of Canada is going to bring inflation back to 2% for the future years. But thankfully, as we do review this annually and that, we can make those adjustments so that we can continue to change it based on the ongoing basis. But inflation has decreased slightly since last month. So we're in hopes that they are returning back to normalcy so that we can say that these numbers are still accurate that way.
Oh, I appreciate your optimism and faith in the Bank of Canada. Other questions? Dwight, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to put our CEO right on the spot if I may. We've been working very hard on the long-term care with the new Rockwood development. Our cost estimate right now is about 108 million. I'm just wondering, how is this going to impact our 10-year capital budgets and so on? It's a guesstimate when it comes to construction costs. We have no idea what would happen 2 years from now or as the project goes along. And I'm just curious, any comment? Is it a guesstimate, or how are we handling that?
I think at the present time, we are still working through some of the site servicing details, stormwater management is a significant one. Some of the servicing connections with West Grey and that. So there are some pieces of information that we don't have right now. The other piece, once we have final elevations, then we can confirm acoustics, then we can confirm what's going to be required from a berming perspective. And so there's a lot of cut and fill on this property. And so there's some money there, but I mean, in the big scheme of the number that we're working with, I mean, I think we're carrying 5 million right now for site servicing. I won't be surprised to see that see a significant increase by the time we're done. But as far as the building itself goes, I think that we're in a good place that way. I think that the architects and colliers have done a good job. And as everybody on this call knows, we had a conversation with the province at AMO last week, and made it quite clear to them that this is a really, really significant investment on the part of Grey County and a challenging one for us. And our hope is that they'll provide some further consideration on the construction fund subsidy side of things. And Advantage Ontario, our industry association, has also taken up that charge. So, fingers are crossed. If I can say that we're all working hard on a number of angles here to try and make this a reality.
Thank you, Madam CEO, and that's exactly what I was hoping you would suggest, that talking to the province, and thank you for that.
Brian, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add to, I know Kim addressed that personally with the provincial government at AMO. I just wanted to add to that, that came up a lot at AMO. And I think the government's under a lot of pressure right across the board. Everyone's talking about construction costs have gone completely out of control. And so you can't, it's not guaranteed, of course, but I think they're under a lot of pressure to address this, and it certainly wasn't just us complaining about it. Thanks.
Mary Lou, could you do you have the top of your head what the construction subsidy is right now and what the ask really should be based on the inflationary pressures that we've seen?
Just looking at our spreadsheet.
One of the things, while Mary Lou's looking that up, I will say was, do you recall I think it was last fall, when they brought out an updated funding model, and and we had a conversation about this briefly at this table, about there's differential funding, whether you're urban or rural, whether you're a large or a small home, etc. And with us being a rural home and a medium-sized home under their definition, the provincial contribution is less than what it would be if we are in a more urban area. But I think with the changes in construction costs, there's not it's not way cheaper to build out here than it would be in a more urban center. So perhaps there'll be some thoughts that way. Sorry, Mary Lou, did you find it?
I did, yes. The construction subsidy is just over $1 million a year. And when I look at I'm just going to go back to what Kim was saying there. Somebody could say that it was cheaper with land, et cetera, here versus GTA, and it would be. But if I'm a construction company, and Councillor Burley would know this, if I have to mobilize my crew and I don't have to pay for accommodation because I'm GTA and I'm building in GTA, I think my price would be cheaper than if I'm having to come to Durham and I'm going to have to pay for my team to stay 4 or 5 nights a week. If we look at our debenture costs, like we're nowhere near that number, obviously. $1 million. If we were to borrow, last week, for 25 years, the borrow rate was 4.13%. So a cry from where we were last year, where we were talking about 3% or 4% at a max. And we're going to have to take out a construction loan, of course. And a ramp up to a debenture payment. That's going to be the big thing. If I'm looking at 2026, between long-term care and redevelopment. 2026 could have a levy requirement of about 6.8 million. Right now, the levy requirement is 1,361,000. And if we could smooth it out a little, 2027, we'd need about 5.4 million.
But to answer Councillor Mackey's question.
How much more would I
The
need?
province's construction funding subsidy is, I think, at the max $1 million a year.
Correct.
Grey County will be making payments in excess of 6.
Right. And you look at, we've structured the calculation on the debenture payment to align with the term of the construction subsidy. At least, and you would do that at least for the long-term care portion, because you don't want to have to raise the levy in the 26th year when the 1 million falls off and you still have debt. And you also have to remember that at year 26, you're going to have no different costs in maintaining a building than right now we're looking at for Grey Gables or Lee Manor. You know, they say it, you know, anywhere from like 17 years roughly for HVAC. You're going to get into the roof unless you like, depending on what type of roofing materials. So it's not like at year 26, all the expenses are gone. So there's going to be our challenge. And
Thanks, Mary
figuring out
Lou.
how to smooth that out for the timing so that we're not having to go up a steep increase for the debenture and the amount required, and then come down a bit and then level out. So the goal is to ramp up. And with the Class C estimate in December, that should give us some better information, and then we'll be coming back with some revised numbers.
All right, thanks very much, Mary Lou. So we certainly need to continue to advocate. You know, our long-term care is healthcare, and I think the province needs to step up and, you know, recognize that and contribute more. Good morning, Mr. Warden.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. I have a question around this whole Class D and Class C estimate as well. I guess my question is, should we be alarmed? Should we be concerned about this? Because if we're looking at right now a variance of between 20 and 30%, I think it's reasonable to assume it won't be on the minus side. It's going to most likely be on the plus side. And where things sit right now, that's roughly just under 22 million on the low end, right? And I recognize that we're going to get a Class C estimate, which is going to give us a sort of a smaller range. But is it possible that it's going to be giving us a smaller range based on a new number? In other words, based on a number other than the 108? So there we are. So
Mary Lou?
Yes, you're correct, Mr. Warden.
Okay.
And I did ask Andrew when we wanted to look at a cash flow of how the money would be divvied out over the years, whether in his experience he'd seen a minus 30, and he said no.
Right. So I guess the answer is we should be concerned about this. And frankly, I don't know that December is going to give us any better news, because it may be a smaller variance based on a larger number, which puts us probably where we are right now with a a low end of 22 million added to the 108. So we're pushing 130. I guess if that comes to bear, then what is the impact on the levy for Grey County, even if we go on that lower end of 20%?
Mary Lou?
Even if you said 7, even if you took the say 700,000 is 1%, which is high, but we're a couple years away.
1% right now is going to be ballpark about 660,000. So if you added another $30 million at 4%, that's 1.2 million,
Yeah.
just simple math.
So we ought to be concerned about this then, right?
Yes.
This should be a worry for this body and for this council.
Might be contributing to my insomnia.
All right, any good news? Any other questions before we call a question on this report?
Yeah.
Christine, go ahead.
Hi there, just to round off in terms of what we need to do, and I'm sorry I'm not able to take my hand down. There we are. Okay, so I really appreciate that we spoke with Minister Calandra at AMO, and we had a undivided attention delegation with the minister. And I think he heard what we were saying in terms of the increase in construction costs, and our CIO did an amazing job articulating that. So I appreciate all of that hard work. I think, though, we need to reinforce that strong effort from AMO and have this committee consider putting a recommendation forward to our Grey County Council, and that is to write a letter to Minister Calandra expressing and reinforcing our concern with the need to increase the construction funding subsidy for this project and the importance of the project to Grey County overall. And I would be prepared to add that as an amendment to the motion at hand, or have it as a separate motion. Thank you.
Okay. Other members of the committee, your thoughts on that proposal?
Well, I'll move the motion, and if our deputy clerk is prepared to let me know what is the appropriate time for that. Thank you.
Sarah, should that be a separate motion? We have the motion on the floor now, so should that be a separate motion?
I would prefer that we receive it as a motion to amend, just because the motion is already on the floor, and
Okay.
if that's amenable to the chair.
No, that's fine. So we have a motion to amend. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Burley.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I comment on that?
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry I brought up all this gloom and gloom to our discussion here today, but it's just something I've been thinking about, and it just shows you how forward-thinking Grey County is to be able to take on a project like we're doing. And I agree that I sort of have second thoughts about a letter at this time going to the minister. We're only one little part in all this volunteer business that's going on out there. I'm a little concerned with that part. That's anyway, but I will second the motion.
Okay. Maybe just in regards to discussion around that addition, Jennifer, can you briefly speak on Advantage Ontario and the advocacy that our association is doing? And are we better to support that advocacy that way because it's widespread as opposed to an individual, letter from Grey County?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that Advantage also had delegations at AMO and are regularly in discussions with the ministry. If I might take that question back and talk to the board at Advantage, and perhaps Kim has some suggestions.
All right.
Yeah, if I can, that I think they on this side of the house, they tend to communicate with my office. So Advantage did a survey of the operators who were actively involved in some phase of a redevelopment project. So they collected that information. They asked for some specific information from all of us around size and costing and all that sort of thing. They have now, they're now following up and asking us to rerun some numbers based on a different, perhaps a different funding model. So I think they're working actively with the province to try and understand what the gap is in funding that operators are experiencing, and then to understand what it would take to close that gap. So they are doing good work. This is something that's been started about a month or so ago, and I understand that they have meetings upcoming in September to further that work.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks, Jennifer. Other thoughts from committee members? Do you want this addition added to the original motion? Brian, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I don't want to sound negative towards Christine's suggestion. Like, I would certainly support it. I guess I'm just looking for some reassurance. Kim, in your experience, do you think this is a good idea? I just wonder about, you just addressed it at AMO. Like I said, it was right across the board. It came up a lot at AMO. I think it came up at the Bear Pit. Is this overkill? Is this too much? Or I just want to make sure it doesn't work against us. If it helps us, fine. Just wondering what your thoughts are.
I think the approach that I might suggest we take, it's not, we don't always do it, but often a short note back to the minister and the staff for taking the time to have met with us and to listen to our concerns and how much we appreciated that. So I could kind of, work this in to a note that's primarily a note of thanks to them, if that would be okay.
So I'm seeing lots of nods from committee members that that might be the best way to go, and that an addition to the original amendment maybe is not required. Christine, are you okay with that?
Well, I'd certainly like it followed up with correspondence to Minister Calandra, and I like the approach that our CAO has addressed, but also it puts Grey County and the redevelopment of Rockwood Terrace in the forefront, so that it is a reinforcement of the really great delegation, but also now that the delegation is over, what is the next step in terms of addressing that? So if my amendment could be that that correspondence be sent to Minister Calandra, thanking him for a detailed discussion and during our delegation with Grey County, and that the just reinforcing the information that was presented in terms of the construction funding subsidy, because that was the intent in part of why we were there, and that satisfies what I was looking for, and it keeps Grey County in the forefront. And appreciate CAO Wingrove's suggestion along with this. Thank you.
Is that all right with the seconder, Dwight? Yeah, okay. Do you want Sarah to read that? I think we've all got a good idea of what's being added. So we've got the original motion with that addition that Kim will follow up, from the meeting at AMO. Okay, so seeing no other questions, we'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Are there any correspondence, Jennifer?
Through the chair. If I could just have one more vote. So in my mind, to my understanding, we voted to accept the amendment. And since that was carried, if we could have just one more vote to carry the motion as amended from the staff report.
Thanks for keeping me on track, Sarah.
Thank you very much.
We'll call the question on the entire motion now. All in favor? And that is carried. All right, correspondence. Jennifer? No correspondence? Is there anything under other business? Jennifer?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I do have one item that I'd just like to touch base with the committee on. I would like to suggest that we postpone the tours that we had planned for the homes next week. They were scheduled for August 30th. The outbreaks at Rockwood Terrace are proving to be quite challenging. This particular variant is extremely transmissible, and I feel that it's best that we not gather, particularly in our long-term care homes, when we have an option to reschedule those tours. So if that's okay with committee, we can update people's calendars. And if you'd like, I can give you a short update on the outbreaks.
Thanks, Jennifer. I think when you and I originally discussed the tour, we thought it was a good idea, but that, you know, if there were any outbreaks, we certainly didn't want to put any of the homes in any jeopardy at all. So I think members of the committee certainly understand that. So if you want to continue with any update for us, that would be great.
Sure, I'll just provide a short update, and not sure if all of the committee members receive our email updates, and if you don't, reach out to me and I'll get you on the list so that you can get them. We give regular updates when a home is in outbreak on Tuesdays and Fridays, and then other updates as needed in between that. So Rockwood Terrace has been managing an outbreak on the second floor since August 5th, and they are doing very well. As I mentioned, though, this particular variant is quite transmissible, seems quite contagious. We went into a second outbreak. It's being treated as a separate outbreak on the third floor over the weekend. And the spread has just been very quick, very fast. So on the Saturday, there were 2 residents with a couple of high-risk contacts. And by the update that went out yesterday, there were 17 residents on the third floor who have tested positive. All of the measures are in place. The team is working really hard to be following all of the infection prevention and control measures, all of the same strategies that we've used very successfully in the past. And it's just that this particular variant seems very contagious. I have a couple of notes that were shared from public health just about this that I thought I would share with everyone. So the new and emerging Omicron variants, BA4/5, can be more transmissible and have some immune evading properties, which can make vaccination or recent infection less protective than they have been before. Most recent reporting shows that 70% of the COVID specimens from the Grey Bruce Health Unit area that went for the genome sequencing were BA5 in late July. So we're still waiting for our confirmation of what variants, but it's highly probable that that's what we're seeing, if not more than one, at Rockwood Terrace. They are noting that COVID is circulating at higher levels within the community right now. So social outings and activities are also busier. Therefore, residents and staff may have more opportunities for exposure than they have historically. And they're also seeing that some outbreaks may be impacted unknowingly by multiple index cases. So historically, there might be one index case, the first case, and then the outbreak proceeds. But we may actually be dealing with several index cases because people are coming, residents are coming and going. They're following all the protocols. We're doing the testing, which is how we're getting ahead of it or being aware of it as early as possible. But that does make good sense as to explaining how this is proceeding. And I also just will note that related to milder infections, it's been anecdotal experience with recent outbreaks in other homes in the area that we continue to see many asymptomatic positive residents. Though evidence is still emerging at this time, it's thought that the BA5 may be less severe than previous subvariants despite its increased transmissibility. Having said that, we are dealing with a very vulnerable population, and so even a mild, less severe infection needs to be monitored closely and in some cases treated. And sadly, over the weekend, there was one resident that passed away with COVID-19, and we send our condolences to that resident's family and loved ones. So the team is doing an amazing job. Staffing levels are challenged, and they are still pulling out all stops, and people are working above and beyond to make sure that the residents are being looked after. So I send my kudos to Karen and the team. The leadership team's on site 7 days a week, providing support and hands-on care. And also thanks to the residents and their designated care partners and families who are also supporting and kind of rolling with the changes throughout the outbreak. So just wanted to share that and thank everyone for their understanding in postponing. When things stabilize, we would love to tour you through our homes.
Thanks very much, Jennifer, for that update. And Karen, thanks for all the work that your team is doing down in Rockwood. And we hope you're out of this situation very quickly. And we completely understand that it's not a big deal to postpone. Looking after our residents is all of our number one concern. So please keep up the good work. Any questions for members of the committee? Not seeing any. We have a next meeting date of September 21st at 9:30. Christine?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to confirm that I do have in my calendar, certainly the meeting change, but I have it to the Tuesday, September 20th. The 21st is not availability for me at all. So I would not be able to RSVP to that particular meeting. And I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for staff and for this advisory committee to change the date to the 21st, or rather from the 21st to the 20th, which I believe was the date change.
If I could just jump in, excuse me, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
We were made aware of your conflict, Councillor Robinson, and unfortunately, when we started looking at moving the meeting and how the impact would be to everyone else's calendars, it was difficult to come up with another date that was that everyone was available for. So we were suggesting to stick with the Wednesday date.
Okay, well, that is unfortunate because I do not like to miss any meetings and feel there's a lot of information that is presented at the meeting for someone to miss. Of course, I understand it because it's for the greater amount of people for in attendance, but I just wanted to register that I'm just what I have scheduled is something that cannot be changed at all. All right, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Well, I think we all run into that, and it's very difficult for our staff to try and make a date change that is going to work for everybody. So unfortunately, I think we've got that date set. Kim, did you want to say something?
I was just going to ask, we're very near the end of the term here. Is there anything, and I don't know, we may need to check this offline, but if there's nothing that's particularly time sensitive about that September 20th date that we need a decision on, perhaps rather than trying to go back and forth about one day or the other in the same week, we just push it out an entire week or something like that. We can take a look. Let us see what we can do. Okay, we'll have one more go here about whether or not we can make something work.
Well, we'll certainly leave it to the senior staff to decide whether or not the meeting is required or not. And okay. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I think we can stand adjourned. Enjoy your, sorry, Brian, go ahead. Sorry, you're muted, Brian.
I think he moves adjournment.
I was going to move to adjourn.
Thank you for moving, seconded by the warden. All right. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your